Hello, I'm with Mark Anderson to talk about the recent statement put out by the Kingstonian chairman last week. I'm just going to put a bit of this interview conversation into context by reading through some of the highlights of that statement that just came through. Talk about AFC Wimbledon's position. They've just submitted revised planning applications which are being considered by Merton Council. This may result in approval or may be sent up to another authority for comment. A conclusion may not be arrived at this year. AFC Dons Trust have yet to seek approval to sell Kingsmeadow from their members. These meetings are due to take place in the last week of September, obviously pretty soon. Contracts for the sale of Kingsmeadow to Chelsea have yet to be finally agreed and signed. Our target date to move from Kingsmeadow is the summer of 2017. This is subject to ongoing discussions with AFC Wimbledon and their own planning and building work schedule. Talk about who we've spoken to and arrangements for plans in the future, and then we talk about the plans for Kingstonian specifically. Naturally, the most important task is to try and find a site within the Royal Borough of Kingston. However, it's not rocket science for any borough resident to understand that finding a site large enough to build a football ground here is massively difficult. So far, we have not found anywhere that is not greenbelt, metropolitan open land, or owned with a massive price tags and with little or no chance of a stadium with floodlight development. Talking more about who you've partnered with, and then I think this is the significant thing for Kingstonian fans. For some time we have debated the forming of a community-owned football club. We have concluded that at this significant time there is golden opportunity to commence this process, and we would therefore encourage everyone to come together as owners of their football club. We've had meetings. The next meetings will involve the Supporters Club Executive Committee with the aim of developing a plan incorporating the timing of moving the ownership of Kingstonian FC Limited to a new community-owned football club. At the time of writing, we believe we might achieve formation before the end of the season. So that's where we are. Now, there's quite a lot of questions that have come up, and some of these questions have come from fans, some are from me, and we'll talk quite candidly about the situation right now. But so, for clarity, where do you see we are right now, and will we be playing at Kingsmeadow next season?
We will be playing at Kingsmeadow next season. Where we are at the moment is we've given you an update on where we actually stand. Nothing has been signed by AFC Wimbledon in terms of their desire to move. Nothing's been signed by us, and nothing's been signed by any potential purchaser of the ground.
Do you have any timescale of how quick this could happen? You said that in the statement that the meetings for the Dons Trust are in September. That's obviously this month.
Yeah, they are very keen to move along with the process, and I foresee things happening within the next year, 18 months.
As we understood it, in 2008, the deal that was signed would mean that Kingstonian would have the right to play at Kingsmeadow for 25 years, seeing us up to 2033. Nothing's changed there. We have that right as is, correct?
As terms of the lease states that we can play at Kingsmeadow until that date. Don't forget, in any commercial lease there are break clauses.
So in the signing of this lease, however many years ago, was there ever any option to not have that
well,
clause?
break clauses actually benefit both parties, because you can have a situation where, for example, in this case, Wimbledon would exercise the break clause, one would think, if we decided that we weren't going to move. At the same time, there could have been a set of circumstances which created a possibility for us to develop somewhere else. Therefore, the break clause it's common business practice. It's in nearly every lease I've ever seen.
And with that being the case, what were we doing to plan for this eventuality that at some point Wimbledon did want to move back to Merton? What did we think would happen at the time that came to fruition?
At that time, we were under the what you have to understand is that the dynamic of football and football club ownership is such that it's a movable feast. Things change all the time. At that time in 2008, where were Wimbledon? In the Ryman Premier League, I think they were at the time. I think so. I don't really know myself. But I mean, the reality is that as things move as things develop, then the ground started to develop as they started to move up through the leagues.
And for clarity, at this point right now, as we speak, nothing's been signed that commits us to moving out of Kingsmeadow at any point.
Nothing has been signed at this time. No.
But there's a working relationship with Wimbledon.
There's an excellent working relationship with the directors and with the trust at Wimbledon now.
And so we are committed to, at the point where Wimbledon decide it's right to sell to Chelsea, we're committed to going along with that and not trying to create a new relationship with Chelsea.
The honest answer is that we feel that, well, we've been told that Chelsea are not really pretty in favour of an agreement with us, but at the same time we see this, and most importantly we see this as an ideal opportunity for us. It's not a threat, it's an absolute opportunity for us to secure the financial future and the viability of the club for the next generation.
With that said, in some of the statements there was talk about being involved with the supporters and supporters representatives. Who have been those representatives throughout the case?
You see, the problem with Kingstonian is, and you know, I have to say this, is there's 300 of us, and we're in about 4 or 5 different factions. I mean, we can make the Middle East look good, because I cannot believe what is going on with people coming out of the woodwork, saying their piece, then falling back down again and disappearing. We had a situation in February-March time where Taimur Lay decided to have a meeting after the match, invited us along, was going to do something. Once he got back from the African Cup of Nations, he got back. I sent him 3 emails asking where we are now, and not a peep. Until yesterday, he sent an email to John Fenwick asking him what the future of the club was. Now, you know, for us to be successful, it has to be a two-way street. You can't just sit there and beat us up unless you actually want to get involved and want to help.
So right now, who is the people
It is
representing?
the supporters club. The supporters club are the people.
And they are specifically who? I mean, for example, I'm not a member of the supporters club, but I consider myself a supporter. Who should I be talking to?
You should be talking to Jeff York and the rest of the committee of the supporters club. They are the people that we've had to engage with, because it has been so difficult, as I pointed out, it's been so difficult to actually engage with other people on this matter.
Okay. Talking about the factions, I'm very aware that I'm in one of those, as you said. A lot of these questions have come from both my friends and via the forum. I'm going to go through these questions they might seem a random order, but there's no other way to ask people's individual questions without turning it into that. So I'm going to go through these one by one, and if you could deal with them specifically, that would help. So from the Back in 2 Ticks document, which for those who don't know is specifically about setting up the environment in which Wimbledon can move back to Plough Lane. So for context, the bottom of page 12 of this document is available on the Google Drive, and you can download it and see it quite easy. Confirms our worst fears. The deal signed in 2008 gives AFC a 1-year break clause for the value of the rest of the lease. Wimbledon want to sell, Chelsea want us out, so they're kicking us out. And as much as we can criticise the board, and the 2008 deal looks bad right now, presumably all they're saying is to go along with AFC's line, presumably for the biggest possible compensation. AFC Wimbledon will pay the Ryman Premier outfit a significantly larger sum than they are entitled to as compensation for the upheaval. Is it true that this is significantly different, significantly more than what we owe? And does it matter if the extra money isn't enough to buy a new ground and in turn spells doom for Kingstonian?
Okay, it's not doom for Kingstonian. Let's just put that right out there right from the beginning. The situation is that legally, contractually, there is a lease break clause that gives Kingstonian an amount of compensation. On top of that, AFC Wimbledon, for all the right reasons, for all the reasons that AFC Wimbledon were set up for in the first place, have on the table a significant sum of money to give Kingstonian to aid their move to a new ground. Now, when I say significant, I can't, for legal reasons, tell you exactly how much it is, but what I can say is that when I was a student travelling from London to Liverpool and Liverpool to London, I used to go on a thing called the Tebbit Express back in the day, and £2,000 or £3,000 would have been a significant figure then. Where now I run a business that turns over 10 or 12 million pounds a year, and this figure that they're giving us, even in those scales, is still a significant figure. It is the future of this club. We have no assets left to sell, to do anything with. Every year it's fallen on us to go and get some sponsorship, us to actually bridge the shortfall in the budget. And as a result of that, I really feel that this is the perfect opportunity for us to go out there and find a ground, a home for ourselves.
But what if that significant amount of money isn't enough to get this?
Okay, let's talk a little bit about what happens with grants. Football grants are fantastic things. There are a lot of them available at the moment. There are a lot of them available because football at the top echelons is awash with money, and we all know that. We all know what the situation is, and some of it can come down to us. However, for us to be able to secure a grant, we have to be able to give an amount of money, a commitment ourselves. So the grant will be 60% of whatever it was we were trying to buy. As a result of that, the bodies that are giving the grants want us to see the colour of our money. We have no money at the moment for that. So until that comes through, there is no confirmation on how much. We've got some outline costings for how much a ground would be, and let's be honest, we don't need another King's Meadow to start off with. We need something that does multifunctional, something that allows us to play football, generates us another revenue stream, and has some AstroTurf pitches because we'd like to accommodate academy, youth, etc., etc. on the same site. That's the ideal scenario. Whether that arrives or whether the youth say no, we want to stay into the fields, we can talk about that. But what we actually need is something that will help us generate extra revenue.
Before we talk more specifically about where those grounds might be and with which partners, if you want to talk about handing over the club to the community and a different body, will they have that money to play with, and what will be in place to make sure that the people handing it to have the expertise to know about the grants?
Let me be clear. There will be, let's say, this significant, terrific amount of money that comes to us. Malcolm, John, myself really don't want to be the ones totally responsible for that. So this is a sort of two-pronged thing. It's the perfect timing for both the move, and also it's a perfect timing to talk about the future structure of the club. So many non-league teams in history have been the result of benevolence from a board of directors until they get tired or until they get fed up, and then it's dumped back on the fans. That is not the case here. John Fenwick, Malcolm Wainwright, Mark Anderson are not exiting stage right at the first available opportunity. We are here. It took over a football club in 2006-07 that was about to go bust, whichever which way you call it. We paid off the debts. We paid the inland revenue some £80,000 to begin with, just to clear the old debt. And we've worked incredibly hard to get this club on an even keel. And we are not intending to walk out now, unless who else is? Sorry, my phone. Unless we've got a situation whereby the new members of the board, we don't get voted on. In which case, you know, that's democracy, isn't it? As we've said in the last week. I'm more than happy to carry on. I think it's important that there's continuity, because there's an awful lot more to running a football club than perhaps meets the eye.
Is there a scenario where the directors' loans will get paid first out of the sums that...
The significant sum there is ring fenced and will go into an escrow account for a new grant.
That will please a lot of people. So talking about the ground specifically and where that might be, you mentioned in the statement about the housing pressures in Kingston,
yeah,
and the lack of space, and we don't know what's happening with the Thames Water site at the moment,
yeah.
And any other specific growth
okay,
plans.
Sorry, John, I'm having in, but let me go through it. Okay, so we started off. We had, within a week of us knowing the situation, etc., etc. This was last year now. We've met with another interested party who were interested in doing something with us. We started to explore that. It's another entity, another body, and we thought that between us we could create a fantastic football facility. Not long ago, 2 or 3 months ago, they met with us and have had a change of heart, and we just have to accept that for it. Our door is still open to those people if they have another rethink, because personally and professionally I still think it's the best way forward. That left us then looking for plan B. We've had some great meetings with Ed Davey to begin with. We haven't met the new Conservative guy yet, but we've had excellent meetings with Councillor Davis, the head of Kingston Council, and everybody is aware of the need to give us something. Now, you're right, land values in this city are ridiculous, in this town are ridiculous, and it's a difficult time to find some space, but it's also a good time to find some space, because developers want to develop, there is a need for housing, and there is also a need for social and community-based products within schemes, within the new housing estates that are being built. Hence, an opportunity arises in which we get a ground built for us, or in part built for us, and that's what we're looking at. We've had a couple of meetings very recently, and we're due to have another meeting with Councillor Davis in the next couple of weeks.
You said about setting up the community club. You might not be in a position to ultimately make this call, but how far at this point, where do you think is too far to be outside of Kingston? Are you looking at Kingston Borough?
We're looking at the borough of Kingston Borough, because that's where Kingston Council has its influence. And we, you know, Wimbledon have struggled with being a Merton-based community club based in Kingston. We need to learn from that lesson. We need to be a Kingston-based football club.
Have you spoken to other football clubs who've been in a similar homeless position?
Yes, we have. I mean, blooming heck, you know. Had a quick chat with some of the guys up from Farnborough on Saturday. They know hardship. The worry for us, the one worry for us, and you know, cards on the table, is that we turn into, I hate to use the word, but you know, poor old Horsham, who sold their ground, came out, was going to be a temporary move, and then they've had all sorts of problems moving to a new facility of their own. The same we can say with Cray Wanderers, who've had a battle, etc., etc. So we are very, very aware of that. But we've had to weigh that up against the benefits that are here and now from a significant amount of money being given to us in order to facilitate that move. Because let's be clear, Without that, it would be curtains, in my opinion.
In the immediate short term, presuming it takes years to build a ground, what would be, without trying to reveal anything which is too confidential, what would be the grounds we want to share with in that time?
I would love to share with someone within the borough of Kingston, and we would love to have some conversations with those people, and you know, those conversations have started. Let's be clear about it.
Has there been any talk about mergers with another club?
No.
And would you categorically rule that out at this point?
Yes. Yes.
We said about Kay's having, after this lease changes, no recognisable assets other than the fan base, if you can count that as one. As things are heading, do you think there is actually the appetite for a community takeover? What if there wasn't the people there? What would happen to the club? And if that isn't the case, what is Plan B?
Okay, what has surprised me and what has, in a way, disappointed. I've read all the concerns on the internet, and all the concerns on the internet are from genuine fans, with one or two exceptions. You know, one person in particular who just seems to raise their head these days when there's an opportunity to bash Malcolm, John, and myself, or bash our very talented and creative young management team who are doing a sterling job. That guy, you know, needs to look at himself in the mirror for a long, long time, because I think some of the stuff that he's coming out with, but I do believe that the fans understand that, judging by some of the songs that have been sung recently. Understand what a dangerous individual he is. But that said, the fans themselves are right to pose these questions and have a genuine concern. And let's be honest, if we look at the track record of Kingstonian boards over the last 10 or 15 years, you know, I understand why they're worried. I understand the nature of their concern. If we'd have wanted to jump ship, we'd have done it when the original lease, the perimeter lease, was given to Wimbledon in exchange for a rent-free period. And don't forget that rent-free period. It's not rent-free because they actually paid for it, but they paid for the lease by giving us some rent-free. So let's not talk about free. It was never free. But let me be really clear. Come 2018, we're still at Kings Meadow, we start paying for the ground. And a ground of that size, that capacity, it's not cheap.
So we've just become accustomed to the sort of good terms that we've had recently.
We've become, I think, complacent a little bit sometimes, I think. I mean, we've managed to generate and one of the great things that came out of the meeting with Tamil was that we got Yorgos on board, and Yorgos has been absolutely a breath of fresh air. But there is an awful lot more Yorgoses out there, I'm absolutely convinced of it. But you have to want to do it, and not say you want to do it and then don't do it. And if there's a decent band of people that want to get on board and get involved with this at going through to board level, then that would be fantastic. Because I, Malcolm and John, do not want the responsibility, to be honest, of a significant amount of money for a ground. We think this is the time to get everybody involved.
It's always been a bone of contention to some Kingstonian fans that the perception is that Wimbledon and Wimbledon fans saved our club. But that might actually be the case in 2015 if it's down to the Don's Trust to give us that amount of money over and above the market value of what they should be paying. So right now, is our appeal more to the Wimbledon fans than it is to Kingston Council and other potential partners like supermarkets and Kingston University who might build this ground?
I think in the modern world to find something like this is in cutthroat business, which football is. To find something like this is like a breath of fresh air. It has replaced my faith in human nature, you know. And they have their two ticks campaign going at the moment. Well, I want a Kingstonian campaign that says hug a Womble, and the next time you see one down the town in their yellow and blue shirts, you give one a hug, because they have been fantastic in this. I honestly mean that. And no, we're not. Malcolm, John and I are not walking away. No, there's nothing to be frightened of here. We are all moving it forward together, and we want the fans to have the ultimate say about what we want to do.
A lot of people watching this, I'm sure, and might be getting on a bit now. So if you could just try and maybe give like a Twitter-esque length of the status of where we are now. So as I see it, people didn't recognise that the break clause was in there. So where we are right now is that we have to do something in the next 2 years, and we need Wimbledon to help us get to this point. If you could just summarise in that, maybe for a soundbite which will go along with this video, if that makes sense.
Kingstonian is moving forward with our own plans, which are of course influenced by the current situation with AFC and its projected ground move, and we feel that our future is more secure now than it has been in the last decade.
Great, thanks. Just two more things before we wrap it up.
You're going to edit this, aren't you?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. And finally,
I am long-winded.
no, it's fine. We spoke about Wimbledon fans. Have we exhausted or have we even started to talk about what we can do with Chelsea and Chelsea fans? Is there a PR campaign? Is that something you want to get involved with, where the perception could be to some that Chelsea come in and make a non-league club go bust? Does that have any?
Absolutely not the case. We haven't met anybody from Chelsea. We haven't spoken to anybody from Chelsea, because there's protocols and ways and means of doing everything. And at the moment, you know, let's be fair, Chelsea haven't bought anything. So we can't have those conversations with them. It's not something that that we are a party to at this time. If they are indeed the preferred bit.
Right. If planning application isn't approved for Wimbledon, is that good for us? Does that buy us another couple of years, or do we want to get this going now?
I would like to get this going now, because I really would, because we, you know, as a board of directors, I have bought coaches that I don't really need on the basis of the sponsorship that comes from Mercedes or the manufacturer to plough into Kingstonian. That is how daft you become when you get involved in football. Now the reality is that we have an opportunity here to generate a decent sum, a large sum of money to be able to secure our future. And I think it would be criminal if we did not take that opportunity as it sits.
And last question, what's next in the immediate weeks? You spoke about having like a public consultation with fans.
We're going to have a public consultation with fans. It's going to be on Saturday the 10th of October, subject to us getting a room off of AFC, which shouldn't be a problem. John's looking at that for us today, but that'll be announced in the next couple of days.
Okay, well that clears up certainly a few things, but I'm sure it'll bring a lot more questions. And
well, you know, we are not hiding. We are not hiding. We are not doing this for some materialistic benefit to ourselves. We are doing it to secure the future of Kingstonian. As I've always said, we are custodians of this club at this time, and we want to be able to pass it on to the next generation of supporters, the next generation of board members, and we truly hope that that is community based, in good nick and good fettle, in a far better state than when we found it.
Okay. Well, we'll see you at that public conversation. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
And thanks for clearing up a few things.
Thanks very much, mate.
Cheers.
Bit long-winded.